Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are shifting gears completely.
Yeah.
We spend so much time on this show analyzing the grind, the habits, the struggles, the techniques, the journey up the mountain.
Right.
But today, we are looking at the view from the summit. We have a text here that claims to describe the absolute peak of human evolution.
It's a fascinating place to land.
Mm.
We are looking at the Bhagavad Gita, specifically chapter 12, verses 13 through 20. And, context is everything here.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Krishna has just finished laying out the entire roadmap of Bhakti Yoga, all 5 of the distinct stages of devotion.
And usually when you finish a roadmap or a training manual, you want to see what the final product looks like. You want to see the result.
Exactly. The text introduces this concept of the pious person, but we need to be very careful with that word, pious.
Yeah.
In modern English, it sounds a bit soft. It sounds like someone who follows the rules, goes to church, and is, generally polite, harmless.
Right, it sounds tame. But looking at the Sanskrit term used here, jivan mukta, that implies something much more radical.
Yes. A jivan mukta is someone who is liberated while still living. This isn't just about being nice. This is someone who has effectively merged their consciousness with God.
So they're walking around in a physical body, paying taxes, eating food, dealing with traffic.
All of it. But their internal operating system has been completely overwritten.
That is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to unpack the mental status and the 20 specific qualities of this enlightened being, as described in these verses. And I want to emphasize, we are sticking strictly to the text explanation because, frankly, some of this runs completely counter to how we're taught to live.
Oh, it's radical. And before we even list the qualities, we have to address the immediate skepticism that comes up.
Right.
The text itself admits that reaching this state is statistically impossible for most people in a single lifetime. It requires effortless purity spread over many, many lifetimes. So the question arises,
why give us a checklist that we can't complete? That was my first thought reading this. It feels like showing me a picture of an Olympic gold medalist when I'm struggling to just jog around the block. It could be discouraging.
The text actually anticipates that reaction. It gives us 4 very specific reasons for describing this impossible person. First, it's the carrot. It shows the ultimate benefit of the path.
Okay.
Second, it motivates people to start. Third, it acts as a prelude, a guide for those already on the path. But the 4th reason is the most practical for us today.
Which is?
It serves as a scale to measure your own personal growth.
A scale, so it's a diagnostic tool.
Think of it like a thermometer for your spiritual health. You use these qualities to measure your own personal score. But, and this is a massive warning label in the text, this list is not for judging others.
That's a trap, isn't it? It's so easy to read this list, look at your neighbor or your boss and say, well, he got angry in the meeting yesterday, so he's definitely not enlightened.
And the text just shuts that down immediately. It says it is impossible to assess these qualities in someone else because they are internal states. You can observe actions.
But you can't know the motive. You can't know the mind.
Never. This is strictly for self-assessment.
I also like that the text offers some reassurance here. It sort of implies that we shouldn't beat ourselves up if we don't match the description perfectly.
Not at all. It says explicitly, do not feel guilty if you score low. Everyone is equal in God's eyes. The instruction is just to join the path. Lord Krishna effectively says, you put in the effort and I'll take care of the results.
So it's meant to inspire, not to induce guilt.
Precisely.
Okay, let's pop the hood and look at the mind of this pious person. The text breaks this down into about 20 distinct qualities. Let's start with how they relate to the world specifically. The quality of hates no one.
This sounds like a standard platitude, just don't hate anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But the logic the text uses is ruthless. It explains that hate usually comes from frustration.
Oh.
You have a goal, someone blocks that goal, and you hate them because they're a hurdle.
Right. If I want a promotion and my colleague gets it, I hate him because he blocked my goal. If I want to drive fast and someone cuts me off, I hate them.
Precisely. But the pious person has no personal goals. They've already reached the destination. They have no personal desires to fulfill. So logically,
No one can be a hurdle.
no one can be a hurdle. So hate becomes impossible. It's a structural change in the mind, not just trying to be nice.
There's an analogy in the explanation here that I found really helpful, the shadow analogy. Can you walk us through that?
It's a beautiful image. The text says the pious person treats their ego like their shadow. If someone insults them, calls them names, or attacks their reputation, they view it as someone stepping on their shadow.
It doesn't hurt the real person.
Right. If you step on my shadow, I might think it's odd, or I might notice it, but I don't scream in pain. I don't bleed.
Yeah.
The pious person knows the ego isn't their true self. So when the ego is attacked, they watch it happen with total detachment. You stepped on my shadow, but I'm over here.
They also use the movie analogy. They see the world as a drama.
Exactly. You don't hate the villain in a movie. You might dislike their actions, but you don't hold a personal grudge against the actor because you know they're just playing a role. The pious person sees everyone as playing a role in this cosmic setup.
But this brings up a counterpoint for me. If they view the world as a movie and have no desires, why wouldn't they just check out? Why not go live in a cave? But the next quality listed is friendly to everyone.
It seems contradictory, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If it's all an illusion, why bother being friendly? The answer is that they know how to love without attachment. The text says they treat everyone equally. Wealth, power, status, none of that registers.
They see the underlying soul in everyone.
They do. And practically speaking, if you don't need anything from people, it is remarkably easy to be friendly to them.
That's true. When you're transactional, friendliness is a strategy. When you want nothing, friendliness is just natural.
Exactly. And that leads right into the next quality, kindness. The text says their only motive for action is kindness.
Why kindness specifically?
This is where the psychology gets deep. The pious person knows that others are suffering. Even people who think they are winning at life-chasing money, status, power, the pious person sees that those people are actually binding themselves tighter to the illusion.
So they see a billionaire stressing over a deal, and they don't see success, they see suffering.
They see someone trapping themselves. So out of pure compassion, they act kindly to help others progress at their own pace. It's not just being polite, it's compassion born from clear sight.
Let's shift to something that I think trips up a lot of us, ownership and ego. The text gets pretty revolutionary about how we view our stuff and, well, our families.
It talks about freedom from ownership. Now be careful, this doesn't mean they have to live in poverty. A pious person might own a house, a car, or run a business, but mentally, they own nothing.
They are a trustee.
That's the key word. They view their body, their mind, their possessions as God's property. They are just managing it for a while. So if their car gets stolen, they'll call the police, they take the required steps.
They're not passive.
No, but they won't feel that emotional gut punch of loss because it was never theirs to begin with.
The analogy that really stopped me in my tracks was about the family, the guest analogy. This is a hard one for parents to swallow.
It is a radical shift in perspective. The text says the pious person views even their own newborn child, not as my child, but as an individual soul who has chosen to arrive through them as a guest.
I am hosting you. That changes the whole dynamic of parenting.
It does. It removes the suffocating attachment. You serve them, you care for them, you love them intensely, but you don't own their destiny. You recognize they have their own journey. And connected to this is the absence of ego.
Which the text clarifies isn't about arrogance.
Right. Paradoxically, a pious person might look arrogant to the outside world. They might not follow social norms. They might skip rituals that everyone else thinks are important.
Okay.
But that's because they've already merged with God. They don't need the ritual. The ego here refers to the definition of I. They no longer think I is the body or the mind. They have redefined their identity entirely.
So we have their worldview. Now let's talk about their emotional state. How does this person actually feel day to day? We have qualities like equanimity, patience, and forgiveness.
The core here is neutrality. The text lists the pairs of opposites: gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and blame. For most of us, life is an oscillation between these. We're happy when we gain, sad when we lose. We're high when we get famous, crushed when we get blamed. The pious person just doesn't oscillate.
They just stay in the middle.
They stay grounded.
Oh.
And regarding forgiveness, the text actually references Jesus to explain the mindset.
Oh, Lord, please forgive them. They do not know what they're doing.
Exactly. That is the pious person's stance. They understand that when people are rude or hurtful, it's because they lack the strength to be nice. They are bound by their nature.
There is a fantastic analogy here that I think is the most useful tool for modern life in this whole text, the robot analogy.
I love this one. It really helps detach from drama. The text suggests that people act according to their accumulated preferences and impressions. Basically, their programming.
Right.
You wouldn't get angry at a robot for vacuuming the floor if it was programmed to vacuum.
Right. And you wouldn't get angry at a robot for bumping into you if its sensors were broken.
Exactly. The pious person sees hurtful behavior as just a mechanism of nature. They look at a screaming boss or a rude driver and think, oh, that person is running the anger program today.
It makes forgiveness instant because
Yeah.
you aren't taking it personally.
You see it as a mechanical output of their past conditioning.
That is incredibly freeing.
Yeah.
Then there is the mountain climber analogy regarding jealousy.
This addresses the sense of fulfillment. Why would a pious person be jealous? They are at the peak. Being jealous of someone else's progress in the material world is like standing on the summit of Mount Everest and being jealous of someone climbing a small hill down in the valley. It just doesn't compute.
It highlights that they aren't chasing anything because they are already full.
And they don't need recognition. That's a big one for us today. We crave validation, we need likes, we need praise. The pious person knows the world can't understand them. They're running a different operating system.
So seeking validation from people who are still caught in the illusion would be?
It would be like Einstein seeking validation from a kindergarten class. It's simply irrelevant.
This brings us to the mechanics. How do they actually do this? Because it sounds great, but how do they control the mind? The text describes the mind as a tool or a machine.
For most of us, the mind is the master. It says, I want cake, we eat cake. It says, be angry, we get angry, we're dragged around by it. For the pious person, the mind is a tool. The analogy uses the horse rider.
The rider must control the horse.
If you don't control the horse, it takes you where it wants to go,
Right.
usually toward food or safety or comfort. The pious person holds the reins. Now, the text is very nuanced here, and I want to make sure we catch this.
Yeah.
It says they still have likes and dislikes.
Wait, really? I thought they were supposed to be neutral.
They have past impressions. Those don't just vanish. The impulse might arise. They might have the thought, I really want to yell at this person, or I really want that object.
So enlightenment isn't a lobotomy.
No. But the difference is they aren't a mute spectator. Their intelligence overrides the impulse. The rider pulls the reins. They feel the tug of the horse, but they don't go with it.
Right.
And because they don't identify with the mind, the text says they are free from depression and guilt.
Guilt is such a heavy burden for most people. We make a mistake and we carry it for years.
It is. But if you see yourself as an extension of God, as a tool in God's hands, then mistakes aren't yours in that heavy egoic sense. You correct them, sure, but you don't carry the weight of them. You don't spiral into self-loathing because you know the doer is actually nature or God acting through you.
We're coming into the final stretch of qualities here, reality and action. How do they live day to day? We have the tenant analogy.
This refers to conviction on reality. If you are renting a house and there's a crack in the wall, you don't panic. You know you can move. You might fix it because you live there, you keep it clean, but you don't lose sleep over the property value crashing.
The pious person treats the body like a rented house.
Exactly.
So death is just the lease ending.
Precisely. Time to move out. This leads to the quality of no suffering. They view life as a drama. They play their role. They ensure they don't hurt others. Nonviolence is non-negotiable here. But they don't suffer mentally because they know it's a play.
There is a point about independence that I found interesting. The text says they depend on the world for food, but not for happiness.
That is the crucial distinction. We all depend on the world for survival. Gravity, oxygen, food, we need that. But most people also depend on the world for their peace. I'll be happy if I get this job or if this person likes me. The pious person has cut that cord
Their happiness is internal.
and totally independent of external circumstances.
And when they act, they are described as highly capable.
Yes, using the army training analogy. Sometimes people think spiritual people are spacey, disorganized, or lazy. The text says the opposite. The path of Bhakti Yoga is rigorous. By the time they reach this stage, they are like a well-trained soldier alert, capable, maintaining internal and external purity without even trying. Efficiency has become their nature.
They are also non-aligned.
Like a parent resolving a conflict between children. They don't take sides, they're impartial.
Now here's the one that really surprised me. The very last quality mentioned. No long-term project.
Stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
It does. You'd think an enlightened person would want to start a massive foundation, save the world, or build a legacy. But this says they don't have long-term plans.
It's not that they are lazy, it's that they don't have their own agenda. They don't try to force the world into a perfect shape because they know the world is an illusion, a mix of positive and negative that will never be permanently fixed.
So they don't have a 5-year plan to stroke their own ego.
None at all.
That sounds, well, to a modern listener, that might sound passive. So they just sit there.
No, it's actually active surrender. They do the tasks that come their way. If a situation arises where they can help, they help. They are fully engaged in the present moment, but they aren't trying to build a global empire. They are simply doing God's work as it appears in front of them, moment by moment, without the anxiety of the future.
That is such a liberating thought, to just do what is in front of you with total dedication, but without the crushing weight of saving the world or leaving a legacy.
It really is. It frees up so much energy to just be effective right now.
Well,
And that brings us to the conclusion of these verses.
the very dear conclusion.
Yes. Throughout these verses, 12.10 to 12.20, Lord Krishna repeatedly says that the person who possesses these qualities is very dear to me. It emphasizes that this isn't just a dry intellectual state or a stoic detachment. It is a state of supreme love and connection.
And with this description, we are actually wrapping up a major section of the Gita.
That's right. This concludes the second part of the Bhagavad Gita, encompassing chapters 7 through 12. This entire middle section has been focused on the nature of God and the practice of Bhakti Yoga. This description of the pious person is the capstone of that entire teaching.
It's the final vision of what that devotion produces.
Exactly.
It is a high bar. I think most of us listening probably feel like we're barely scratching the surface of hates no one, let alone the rest. But like we said at the start, it's a scale, not a judgment.
Exactly. It shows us where we're heading. It gives us a North Star.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here is something for you to chew on. We talked about the tenant analogy and the drama analogy. If you truly looked at your life as a drama that you are just acting in, or your body as a rented house that you're just staying in for a while, how would that change the way you handle your stress at work or home tomorrow?
It's a perspective that changes the stakes completely.
It really does. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.